Interview with Sam Weinstein, take one. Hello and welcome to The Voice. My name is Joseph Salama. I'm an editor here, and I'm sitting with Sam Weinstein, Vice President candidate with Our Future. Thank you for sitting with us and just answering a few questions that we have.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question we have is, how do you believe your experience on this year's Board of Directors will help you in this position?
Absolutely. I think that I've been really privileged at being able to serve not only on this ACUW Board of Directors, but also on the RHSA Executive Board. And with both boards, I've tried to take a similar approach in making sure that I am leaving the association better than when I first came in. Going back to RHSA, I noticed that there was a lack of really addressing diversity in the halls. So I added a diversity component to the executive board. I also noticed that there were problems with how RHSA was reaching out to its residents. So I added a public relations component to the board to really make sure that we're sending out a strong message that we care about these things. And I've tried to do that similarly with ASUW this year and their organizational changes that we have incorporated with our own board. I was a huge supporter of adding back in the public relations coordinator position, which oversees all PR efforts, and I actually currently oversee that position along with the current Vice President, Eric Schellen. Also, I've been a huge proponent of really pushing the Director of Communications position since I have seen so much value in the Public Relations Coordinator position, and that has been passed and will be on the board next year. So I have been at the forefront of these really large topics of how we're going to make associations better, and I've been one of the main people that's really pushing forward these initiatives. So I think in looking at next year, I bring that. I am not afraid to challenge the status quo. I'm not afraid to make tough choices in order to really make an association better, and I think that those experiences will really help me for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are in a time of financial cuts. We all know we've seen the forecast. It's not pretty. And at a time where we're facing financial cuts at this association, how do you plan on prioritizing funding?
Absolutely. So we are in a financial crisis. You're absolutely right. What's happening right now is that we are spending more money than we're bringing in. I mean, at the basic, brunt of the problem, that's what's happening. And I think that it's really important that we take small risks in order to make sure that we're bringing in revenue that hasn't normally been brought in before, because I think that will help in lessening the cuts to our budget. I am a huge supporter of the OCHA reform. I think that it's really great that we are going to be switching to a fee-based model where we're bringing in more revenue and adding in positions, but those positions will be paid for through the revenue brought in by this new program. I'm also a huge supporter of creating an advancement coordinator position, which would be looking over not only the ASUW Advancement Fund, which is reaching out to alumni and asking for additional funding that we can bring back to the association and spend it on things that we normally can't due to gift of state funds and all kinds of specific rules that we have for how we spend money. But they would also hopefully be overseeing the Husky Pride Fund. And I think that yes, it's hard because we'll be creating more salaries, we'll be needing to put more of our resources towards these, but I think that there are risks that will pay off in the long run. These are ways to bring in revenue, and as a result will allow us to cut less of the budget, and because we'll be bringing in more revenue. And when specifically thinking about the budget, something that I really stand for is prioritizing advocacy and student life. Specifically advocacy, because how else are we going to support ourselves and fight for ourselves if we don't have that strong institution in place? I've been a huge supporter of adding in the OGR organizing coordinator, because I think that just gives more resources towards organizing and getting our resources together, being able to efficiently go to Olympia and lobby on behalf of higher education. So I definitely support funding advocacy very strongly, and I also am a huge supporter of funding student life programs. Since we are in such a budget crisis, I want to make sure that we're really keeping our student life fun and active for students. We're here to not only get a good education, but to enjoy college. And I think that you need to have the full package in order to really enjoy your time here. So I think that making sure that we are still putting on quality events, having lots of movies, concerts, just events in general that are going to really enrich a student's life, not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to clarify, has the advancement coordinator been established by the current board of directors?
It has not officially gone through.
Okay.
Yesterday, personnel committee met and they looked at this position, but it has not officially been approved by the board of directors yet.
Okay.
But that should be happening very shortly.
Okay, just to clarify.
Yes.
Our third question is, where do you see the line between supporting the missions of the enterprises and their directors' goals, and ensuring the sound fiscal management of student dollars? So looking at the enterprises versus supporting fiscal management of student dollars.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's something that, once again, going back to the first question of how does your experience on the board help you with this, this is something I've already been doing this year. I'm one of 8 voting members on the board that passes the budget and that really looks at everything with a critical eye. And something that we really do currently, which I've been doing, is making sure that our entities are fitting the mission that we have. And our mission is to serve students. It's to provide quality, relevant programming, services, and advocacy. And so I think that what we've done this year is making sure that our budget reflects that. We've tried to the best of our ability to make sure that the budget numbers reflect what our directors want, and in order to keep their entities running the way that they feel can allow them to function to the best of their ability to serve students. So while I do want to really work to make sure that the entities are meeting their goals and that they're providing the services that they want to provide, ultimately, being a board member, I'm held accountable to the students. And it's the students' money that we're spending. So I look at their interests and I see that, how does this budget reflect what they want? I'm not here to meet the needs of the directors. I mean, I am, but I'm here ultimately to meet the needs of the students. And I look at them as my top priority and how I'm serving them. So when looking at the budget, we did make cuts across the board. We made cuts everywhere. And I think that that's really important, because we didn't want to make specific cuts to one entity, because we didn't want to damage it to the point where it couldn't run the way it wants to run. Yeah. And that's something that I stand for. I am a very strong supporter of making sure that when we do make cuts, that it's not going to disable an entity in any way that they can't function the way they want to function. Mm-hmm. We want them to still be able to do their job, but we want to make sure that they're being fiscally responsible when doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you touched on this next question on a few other ones, but coming from a strong background of programming with both RHSA and ACW, why switch to the vice presidency, which works with the enterprises specifically?
That's a very good question that a lot of people have been asking me, and I'm so glad I finally get to clarify this. When I first got involved on this campus, it was with programming. I moved into the residence halls, and the first event that I heard about was the Hansi Hall Haunted House. So I got involved with that, and that's when I really found out about my love for programming. I love that events bring people together. I love that it's a way to break the ice. I love that it's a way to build community, and that's how I got my start. I worked within Hansi Hall, then rose into the RHSA Executive Board, where I was Director of Programming, and then now I'm currently serving on the ASUW Board as Director of Programming. And that was what my passion really started out as programming. But the more time that I've spent on these different boards, the more that I've come to realize that I love being in an association and making it better. I love taking something and finding the gaps and filling them. And that's something that ultimately I've realized kind of has been my true passion. And it's something that I've tried to do, as I was explaining earlier with the board of directors changes, not both with ASUW but RHSA. Some other initiatives that I've made sure that I'm really working on have been this year with Rainy Dog Radio, and making sure that collaboration is very strong with them and arts and entertainment. I have just created a new steering committee where the two will work more closely together, and next year both will be overseen by the Director of Programming. These are the changes that I like making. I think that while programming is fun, I think that I have the skills and experience to go further than just the fun sides of an association, and I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. And I've been working with enterprises this year, serving on the board. I've gotten to have a first-hand role in how they are allocating their money, how they're spending their money, how they're meeting the goals of our association, how they're staying accountable not only to the association but to our students through the metrics that they have set in place, that we have helped to set in place as a board. So I think that ultimately what did start out as a love for programming has turned into a love for strategic planning, and I think that I've had the experience of being able to do that, and I'll continue to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And our final question, and we have about 1 or 2 minutes left here, is briefly discuss how the budgeting process works within ACW as an organization, and if elected, what your role would be in those discussions.
And this is what I think, once again, really highlights my experience and why I am the most qualified candidate for this position, because I'm currently serving on the board. So I've had a first-hand experience in dealing with the entire budget process. How that works is that the first step is that the each entity director gets to kind of make their own budget. So usually they'll look at what they have now, see what changes they want to make. Something that Neil did this year as finance and budget director was asking specifically, if you were going to get cut X percent, what would this look like? And making sure that the directors really had a chance to show, here's where I would want the cuts to be made. And then they also had a section where they can include any budget increases that they so desired. So then each entity director makes that proposal. They pitch it to the Finance and Budget Committee. They look at that, and then ultimately they create a budget that they see will be best for the association. Mm-hmm. That budget then goes to the Board of Directors. The Board of Directors then looks at that, sees if they want to make any additional changes, and ultimately the board has to approve that budget before it can go on to SAF, the Services and Activities Fee Committee. And SAF then decides how much they want to fund out of that budget. And that's where we're currently in the process. We're waiting to hear back from SAF how much we are actually going to be given according to the budget that we submitted. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we will get all the funding that we requested, and then at that point, everything stays the same. If not, then the budget will come back to the board again, and we will look at where we're going to make additional cuts. So that's how the budget process works. It's something that I have experienced firsthand this year. Being on the board, I've taken a look at it. I've worked specifically with each of my liaisons to form their own budget. I currently am serving as a liaison to Arts and Entertainment, CORE, the Student Health Consortium. I also chair the Husky Pride Fund Committee, and I oversee the Public Relations Coordinator while also serving as a liaison to the University Bookstore. So I've had a lot of experience in working with our entities and making sure that they are creating a budget that fits their goals but also fits the goals of the association, and that's exactly what I would do next year. I would be serving as liaison to Experimental College, Off-Campus Housing Affairs, and the Bike Shop, and I would work with them in the same way that I've worked this year with my liaisons to really empower them to meet the goals that they have for themselves. And my specific role also as vice president would be to serve on the Finance and Budget Committee when making these decisions. Currently, Director of Organizational Relations has that role, but that is now being shifted over to Vice President. And this year I've had the privilege of serving for a little bit of time on the Special Appropriations Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Finance and Budget Committee. So I have experience in making these tough budget decisions, and I think that'll really help me when moving forward with the budget next year.
Yeah, absolutely. We're out of time, and I wish I could ask you more questions.